Hi everyone, again, Abel Montalva here, and in this presentation I'm going to explain the IMAPS and the DNS, how I configure them on Linux and Windows for this lab, and the hardening recommendations that help secure each service. What is IMAPS? IMAPS is basically IMAP but with a strong encryption added to it. With regular IMAP, the email client connects over port 143 and all the communication happens in a clear text. That means anyone on the same network could capture the traffic and see the username, password, or even the mailbox data. IMAPS fixes this by using port 993 and requiring TLS encryption. When the email client connects to port 993, it creates a secure tunnel before sending any login information. Everything inside the connection is encrypted, which means even if someone captures the traffic, all they see is unreadable data. This is very important in environments like public Wi-Fi, office, schools, or any network where other users might try to sniff traffic. IMAPS protects the user's identity, their password, and all the email content. It also helps prevent man in the middle attacks because the server presents a certification that must be trusted by the client. So, in simple terms, IMAPS is the secure version of IMAP. Same functionality, same mailbox access, but all the communication is protected in the end to end. For this lab, I install Dovecot on my Ubuntu server. Um, Dovecot is the service that handles IMAP and IMAPS for Linux systems, and it is one of the most common mail servers components in real environment. The installation was very straightforward. I updated the server and then used the apt command to install the Dovecot IMAP package. Once the installation finished, I make sure that Dovecot service was enabled and running. After that, I needed to verify that IMAPS was actually listening on the correct port, which is port 993. I used the SS command on Ubuntu to check all listening ports, and I was able to see Dovecot clearly listening on 993. That confirmed the service was active and ready. The final step was verifying IMAPS from an external machine, which is exactly what the assignment required. I switched over to my Kali machine and ran an Nmap scan again against the Ubuntu IP address on port 993, and the Nmap detected IMAPS running on the port, which confirmed that the service was reachable over the network. This completed everything needed for the IMAP part of this lab. Um, and then no mail sending or receiving was required, so just having port 993 open and detected by Nmap was enough just to meet this goal. For IMAPs hardenings, I used three recommendations. First, disable plain text authentication, so users cannot log in without encryption. Second, enforcing the TLS version only, which prevents insecure connections. And third, using firewall rules to restrict access to IMAPs from trusted networks. What is DNS? DNS is a critical network service because it turns domain names into IP addresses. Without DNS, you cannot browse websites, or access many services. It listens on port 53 and supports different types of queries like recursive or iterative. For the Windows part of the lab, I installed the DNS server role directly from the server manager. This is the easiest and most common way to add DNS in the Windows environment. The important thing here is that I follow what the professor instructed and did not promote the server to a domain controller. The goal for this assignment was not to create a full DNS structure. The goal was to only to install the DNS and make sure that the service was running and listening on the correct port, which is the port 53. After the installation, I opened the DNS manager to verify that the DNS service was active. I could see the server listening listed inside the DNS console, which the basic folder like forward lookup zones and the reverse lookup zones. I did not create any zones because the assignment did not require. The only requirement was to have the DNS running and not hosting a full domain. The final part was to check in the DNS was reachable over the network. To do this, I went to my Kali machine and ran an IMAPS scan, especially targeting port 53 on the Windows IP address. IMAP was able to detect the DNS service, which confirmed that port 53 was open and the DNS server was responding to external queries. This complete the Windows DNS section perfectly. The server was running, active, reachable, and listening on the correct port exactly the way it required. For Windows DNS hardening, the first recommendation is to disable recursion to reduce the risk of DNS amplification attacks. The second is to restrict zone transfer to specific IP addresses only. The third is enable DNS login, which gives visibility into DNS activity and help detect suspicious or abnormal behavior. On Ubuntu, I installed bin 9, which start the name services automatically. I confirm both TCP and UDP port 53 were listening and then scan the server from Kali using Nmap to verify DNS was detected. For bin DNS, the three hardening recommendations are disabling recursion using access control lists to limit who can query the server, and restricting zone transfer, which protect the zone file from being downloaded by unauthorized host. In conclusion, I configured the IMAPS on Ubuntu and DNS on both Windows and Linux. I use Nmap to verify that all services were correctly listening on their ports, and finally I apply several hardening recommendations to reduce risk and improve overall security. These are some of the references, and well, thank you so much for everything.